For today. He is a certified medium, healer, and teacher with the SCSCMA and has been for over 20 years. Not only is he a very good teacher, but he also does a lot with sacred geometry and all kinds of metaphysical things on top of the spiritualistic things. So help me in introducing to the platform Reverend Phil DeLong.
Thank you, Jamie. Good morning, Casadega. All right. Okay, I stole that line from Robin Williams in Good Morning, Vietnam. Okay. All right. Tomorrow is Veterans Day. So if we have any service members here, I would like them to stand up. Okay. Thank you. And I want to thank you for the service that you have given to America. There are two kinds of veterans. There is the traditional veteran who confronts fear and selfless abandon, facing a known enemy and fighting for others. And then there is the spiritual veteran who clings to faith, facing an unseen enemy and fighting for souls. Neither veteran runs from fear or indulges in self-pity. Both are oblivious to the degree that they impact others or the magnitude of how they balance karma and command the energies of infinite intelligence. The spiritual veteran represents the spiritual warrior within us all. The word warrior here doesn't refer to someone who goes to a battlefield and spreads violence and spills blood. That is ignorance and fear. The word warrior represents someone who wins battles through light and love. A spiritual warrior cultivates daily peace, all while standing their ground for justice. To put it in simple terms, it is a battle of information, and it is happening on the outside, but also inside ourselves. Ignorance and fear being the root of all suffering and pain that we know in the world. A spiritual warrior is in a constant quest of wisdom and knowledge in order to become wiser and eventually a master of their own lives by spreading light and love. As we dig in a little deeper, light is information and love is creation. These are the spiritual warrior's main tools to end ignorance and fear, that light and love. Combined with their unique life experiences and divine gifts, and driven by their life mission and soul purpose, the spiritual warrior puts an end to old toxic patterns in order to create a new world for themselves and to pave the way for future generations. Spiritual warriors are those who have the courage to walk a path that not many have walked before. They choose to live up to their true spiritual nature, becoming a catalyst for the evolution of consciousness. The warrior in here honors life and stays true to their mission, even if it means to walk away from situations, people, and things that prevent them from spreading the light in the world. And I have myself walked away from many situations, and you can't put negative energy into negative energy. It just produces more negative energy. So we must be of the light. As the ascended Master Jesus would say, then turn the other cheek. And sometimes we have to do that. So spiritual warriors stay grounded in the truth and values in order to create the world they want to live in, to expand consciousness that will help our Mother Earth thrive, and by consequence, our universe and all that infinite intelligence pervades. I'd like to talk about a couple characteristics now of the spiritual warrior. So the spiritual warrior is aware that there is much more than just this physical world, and is constantly seeking for more truth, clarity, and wisdom. That's why you are all here today, to understand that wisdom and that truth. A spiritual warrior is willing to let go of all belief systems and keeps an open mind to limitless possibilities, as in this way that they are keeping evolving into new levels of consciousness. So as we follow our spiritual path, we have all learned new beliefs, and in sometimes changing our own truth. The only truth is love. And the closer we get to love, the more we get to truth. A spiritual warrior knows that staying true and aligned with their purpose will help them unveil and develop their gifts. And in return, it will inspire others to do the same. Now, we all have gifts of healing. We all have gifts of mediumship. And that's what spiritualism allows us to find, that belief system and truth. Everybody has those gifts. It's just some develop it a little bit faster than others, but everybody has access to infinite intelligence. And infinite intelligence comes into our world through our thoughts. This is infinite intelligence inspires our imagination, and our imagination can do anything. You have to believe it. Spiritual warriors never attack. They only protect creation, and it is in this way they show who they are in regard to fear and ignorance. They can recognize that fear and ignorance as though they've been through that path before. So a true spiritual warrior never attacks, all right? Because they know the truth. We have to spread that love throughout the world, that love and that light. And spiritual warriors have to be the example for others. You can all do that. A spiritual warrior knows that honesty and self-awareness are keys to self-improvement, as one cannot work on a weakness that one refuses to identify in the first place. Because God and infinite intelligence are within and without. The only one who can save you is yourself. So, as far as self-improvement goes, an alcoholic will save themselves only when they realize it themselves. They can't have their wife nagging them for 10 years saying, you got to quit drinking. All right. And until that person recognizes that he may have caused problems with his drinking, then he will come to that self-improvement that he will overcome that, if we might want to call it ignorance, we'll call it ignorance. The spiritual warrior doesn't impose a way, they show the beauty of the path and lets people's free will decide whether to take it or not. We all have a spiritual path. And the spiritual path, if you're saying it goes from Cassadaga to Seattle, some people are in Salt Lake City, some people are in Kansas City, some people might be in Pensacola, but we're all on that spiritual path. And we have to find our own spiritual path. And that usually comes with passion, whatever you're passionate about. And what fuels passion is happiness, right? So if you follow your happiness, that your sole purpose will tag along. A spiritual warrior accepts responsibility for themselves. They don't find excuses or blame others for any event that takes place or not in their life. They simply look at themselves first and takes accountability for their actions. They are aware that they create their own reality. There are a lot of victims in this world. Okay, the spiritual warrior will accept that responsibility. And they will acknowledge when they are wrong. They're not going to be like Fonzie and say, can't say never or sorry. Okay. So we have to accept the responsibility for our actions. And when we do, we can move forward and leave the past in the past. A spiritual warrior knows that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And this is a Buddha quote, right? And when we look at this quote, Buddha also said that the pathway to enlightenment is to find the cause of suffering, right? But look at pain is ineffable, suffering is optional. Nobody has to suffer. It's optional. The only way you're going to suffer is if you allow it or you put it on yourself, right? And when you put it on yourself, that is usually remorse. Coulda, woulda, shoulda crap. All right. So we have to, again, leave the past in the past. Live in the now. and let the future work itself out, following our soul path. A spiritual warrior speaks their mind, as they know honesty is an act of courage and a gift that only those who can see it will appreciate it. What I want to comment about this, about a spiritual warrior, is sometimes the truth hurts. Okay, so we have to use tact when we speak about the truth hurts. There are a lot of people who we would more or less, it's a term I'm trying to use, enable. All right. So the spiritual warrior has to tell the person what they're doing wrong. And this happens with children a lot. It's, they need money for this, they need money for that. And the parent usually will give them this money. But what they're doing is enabling them. All right. And another way to put that would be the game of baseball. 3 strikes, you're out. Okay. It's okay to help a person and pick them up once or twice, but don't give them 10 strikes. Okay, a spiritual warrior is humble about their experiences, and they are conscious that they can learn something every day from anyone. And when people come to my classes as the teacher, I will tell them that teaching is a lifelong learning. And as the teacher, I will learn from my students as well. And that's how we have to approach life. And sometimes what we learn from other people will change our truth more towards that love. A spiritual warrior respects dignity and life in all forms and shapes. They know that there is no separation between us. So the big word here is respect, right? We have to expect everybody who we come in contact with. And we haven't really walked in their shoes until we get to know them a little better, right? So just have respect for everybody. Thank you, Aretha Franklin. Okay. Okay, a spiritual warrior is the first one to show vulnerability. They know that their vulnerability is an act of courage, and they unveil that mask. They invite others to do the same, to open themselves up, connect, heal, and grow together. All right, now we all put a mask around us. And when we put that mask around us, it's almost like we're hiding behind something. There are people who are mediums who, in their general work and the public, they want to hide behind the mask and not admit that they're a medium, because they might get a little, you know. I had a perfect example of that. I was at a wedding in 2010 up to Michigan, and I am a repurposed Catholic. So I met a Catholic, my fishing buddies up in Michigan. And then the wife said to me, well, what do you do now? And I told her I'm a spiritual counselor and medium. And then she goes, what's that? And I go, taking a line from The Sixth Sense. Okay, and her jaw just dropped about a foot. So, but we have to be true to ourselves and unmask ourselves. So a spiritual warrior has tasted darkness and suffered in many ways before. They tasted it enough times to know that it was never the path that made them feel better, but it was definitely the same path that made them grow the most. Like in the good old song from Frankie Ballard, how am I ever going to get to be old and wise if I ain't ever young and crazy? Okay, so we've all been through the young and crazy days. So, but now we have recognized our spiritual path and are going forward. A spiritual warrior checks or keeps their ego in check and doesn't look for recognition. Modesty and humbleness is the key. Spiritual warriors cultivate self-love, self-forgiveness, and inner peace. How can they be good with others if it doesn't feel good within themselves? And I'll have to say here, forgiveness is the key. If you have any unforgiveness in your heart, release it. A spiritual warrior understands that all we want and deserve is happiness. This is principle number 7. We have to follow nature's physical and spiritual laws and create our unhappiness or happiness. I guess I said that in reverse, but happiness or unhappiness. So, who wants to be unhappy? So, be happy and be the spiritual warrior who you are. Creating that happiness, we can be of love and light and be the spiritual warriors to others and lead by examples. And what I want to conclude with that is we are all spiritual warriors and use the weapons of love and light. Thank you.